Society as foundation of schools and schooling. The sociology of education starts with a perspective or theories that provide a framework to search for the questions and knowledge about systems of education. A theoretical perspective helps to answer the different questions to be inquired by researchers and how it is being organized to answer queries as it provides the new perspective on education for future teachers, administrators, and policymakers. This set of principles and propositions attempts to explain why things happen, why and how these phenomena are related to each other, and the connection between the phenomena. Moreover, these provide logical explanation for the different issues related to the systems of education. This chapter examines schools and schooling from the sociological perspective and provides insight into the different ways on how sociology helps teachers understand phenomena and challenges in the field of education today. This chapter also includes discussion on the relationship of society and schools and how the society influences the education process. Sociology and education. Education is a lifelong learning process, which needs thorough attention on how education policies work and affect those who are being educated. It has many questions that could only be answered by a sociologist who understands education. Sociologists are mistaken to be people who could tell what is right from wrong or what is good from the bad. They are actually more into determining possible outcomes of action, how things work, how policies affect others, and more that bring about new perspective and innovations which are very essential in education. Sociologists have many roles in the community. They interact with people in the community or organizations to understand each individual and win in group or society. They study the organizational structure of a certain society as they look into its institution, which include politics, economics, health, family, religion, and education. Schools are considered as one of the formal organizations that contribute to the entire society and is interrelated with institutions such as family. The family directly interacts with the school and both are directly connected with one another through the student. The association of the family to the school has an effect on the performance and success of the student. The lifestyle of the people in the society are identified according to the social stratification. Children need education, but not everyone is privileged to be formally educated in the school setup. Some children are informally educated in their homes by their family, sometimes with peers and other people in their environment. The media also has the contribution to the education of the individual. Since society is dynamic, therefore change is inevitable. Changes allow a person to learn how to adjust to social differences and different groups, thus learning how to fit within the society. Sociologists are very important in schools. They provide schools with information and recommendations that may be a great help to the educational system, from the simplest to the complex interaction between the student and the teacher to the interaction between the school and society. The role of education sociologists in the educational system of the country helps not just students within the school but is extended to the professional world of the students who belong to the institution. Theoretical perspective in the sociology of education. Social scientists have refined theories for the better understanding of the structure of the school institution or the educational system itself. School here presents the theories of education with logical, argumentative, and valuable perceptions from researches or studies on education. We have functionalist theory, which comprise of structural functionalism, consensus or equilibrium by Talcott Parson. According to this theory, the major concepts of the theory are focuses on the positive functions performed by the education system such as creating social solidarity, teaching skills necessary for work, teaching core values and role allocations. The implication to education is that functionalists establish relationship between schools, institution, and society which must fulfill necessary societal function to produce stability. Another concept of the functionalist is starts with the assumption that education is an institution to facilitate the stability of society, which emphasizes interconnectedness by focusing on how each part is influenced by the other. The implication is that education needs to be systematic as a whole to avoid being non-operational, and schools' main function is to prepare students to acquire basic knowledge, skills, and values for future employment. Other concept of functionalist is happens through passing on society's culture through which a new generation of children acquire a central norms, values, and culture of the society. The implication to education is that basic function of school for socialization, teaching children to become members of the society, teaching children to be productive members of the society, selection and training of individuals for positions in the society, and promoting change and innovations. Another theory is conflict theory by Karl Marx and Weber Marx. According to their concepts, that conflict focuses on issues of contentions, power, and inequality, highlighting the competitions for scarce resources, focuses on culture as a part as a social product. And its implication to educations, uh, conflict says society competing groups, the haves and have-nots, were in a constant state of tension, which could lead to the possibility of struggle. Another major concept of the conflict theory, it questions the functionalists pertaining to the assumptions that schools are ideologically and politically neutral, and that school functions are based on the merit that its learner has the capacity to efficiently improve his or own ability to meet the demands and standards of the society. The implications of education here, quality education has a set of standards and what is acceptable to be at best. This gives the notion that inequality in terms of what they may become and could get from their works is also expected. Other major concepts of the conflict theories believe that the educational system reinforces and perpetuates social inequalities that arise from differences in class, gender, race, and ethnicity. The implication to education is that students are labeled to be achievers and non-achievers according to their status in society. Another major concept by Marx contended that schools give a false set of ideas and beliefs to students in terms of education quality. Many believe that there is quality and chance of having quality education. Implication to education: those who are more privileged to have better resources for learning and achieving more are given what they really need to develop their skills and to be competent, while those who are not capable or less fortunate are not given the right learning opportunities that limit their abilities to what they are only provided with. Another theory, symbolic interactionist. One of their major concepts is focuses on how people share symbols and construct society as a result of this everyday interaction. The implications to education is that interactions between students and teachers help develop a set of expectations for students' performance both in academic subject and discipline. Another major concept of the symbolic interactionist is examine what teachers and students do in school. They question even the most commonplace, taking for granted actions and interactions, things most people do not question. Implications of education, asking questions in a social psychological way on the frequent unfamiliar relationship between school participants is what interactionists do. It is what sociologists of education use as an avenue for the student, teachers, and principals in the school. Uh, Other major concept of symbolic interactionist is uses cultural symbols such as words and nonverbal body language and gestures during interaction. Through this process, people develop a sense of self and create a reality with other. Applications to educations, students learn through interactions how they are different from others based on individual experiences, social class, and status. Sociology of education, contemporary theories. Some of the contemporary theories in the sociology of education are summarized in the table. We have cultural capital theory. No? Proponent of this theory is Pierre Bourdieu. His concept refers to the cultural practices including dress and mannerisms, language, patterns and expressions, a knowledge of the world derived from the life experiences such as visits to museums, all of which provide knowledge of class culture of the school. The implications of educations delve into education's influences on stratifications and social class, trying to reconcile the influences of the social structures on the subjective experiences of individuals, used by schools to reproduce inequality both in the interactions and in the structure of education. Social capital theory by James Coleman. Uh, his concepts refers to the social resources students bring to their educations and future involvement in school or community. It results in building of networks and relationships with students can use as contacts for future opportunities. Applications education used to explain the role of school in reproducing social class. And we have here the code theory by Basil Bernstein. His concepts refers to the organizing principles used by members of the social group, which reflects the shape, the assumption we hold about our relationship to a certain group. Implication to education, people learn their place in the society by the language code they use. The codes come to symbolize social identity. Language codes aid in the social reproduction of class and differences in power. And for the feminist theory by Harriet Martineau, James Adams, their concepts with no single feminist theory. Feminist theories echoed the need or to hear other voices in the education system, in particular women's voices, and to pay more attention to the situation of women. Implications of education lead to the examination of educational policy and how it affected girls, women, their future opportunities. Society and school, its linkage. The linkage that connects society and school is a reflection of the other. It comprises the dynamics of for enhancing arts education. Arts education, aside from being a part of the schools where this is offered, is also part of the society where it was born. Interaction with society would bring about changes in culture and eventually in destiny. Schools are considered as pillars of culture. When the younger generation receives the knowledge and understanding of what an educational institution has accumulated, There is what we call the preservation of the level of civilization. This refers to the process of the enculturation, in which students are taught to adapt to the dominant cultural patterns of their society. Society has been defined as the web of social relationship, which is the key to understanding human behavior and the various institutions in it. A student must be aware of the various forms of relations in one's family, in the community one lives in, and in the society as a whole. Social relations can be classified into primary relations, which refers to the mother, father, daughter, son, husband, wife, sister, and brother, and secondary relations, which refers to the uncle, aunt, niece, and nephew. Friends, neighbors, and other similar relations fall under the tertiary relatives. To understand social relations, one must delve deeper into the role and status of an individual in society. A teacher in school, for example, performs different actions such as teaching, evaluating, initiating group or classroom activities, and doing administrative work. The same thing happens in the individual in the family on the other situations, which proves the multiple roles one can play in everyday life. Therefore, society may be considered as a system that is made up of interrelated and mutually dependent parts that join forces to preserve the system to satisfy the purpose or an objective. Education is considered as the foundation of the society that helps in the achievement of social prosperity, political constancy, and economic wealth. As a key element of development in any modern society, education is the most significant indicator of a region's overall development as well. French sociologist Emile Durkheim emphasized the role of the education system in the preservation of society and culture. The system is very vital in complex societies where families, as well as the other primary groups, are not yet fully fitted to prepare the young for adulthood, something that is usually expected by the larger society. School is an elimination of society rather than the individual. The utmost objective of the school and schooling process is to nurture the growth of social progress. The influence of society to education process. So we have sociocultural influence. The education of any society is directly correlated to its sociocultural factors. The education process developed from society's social structure, social norms, and value system is the result of human society's goal to transfer surviving cultural content from one generation to the next. In informal settings, socialization happens when a community interacts with or educate their members about society's norms and values. In a traditional manner, Christian missionaries, Islamic madrasa, Buddhist monasteries, and other religious institutions convert individuals to their faith by infusing their religious ideas. However, the transmission is not limited to religious. Each community transfers its norms and values whenever possible. Some of the key concepts that are transmitted to the younger generations include the authority of elite culture, gender disparity, and other sociocultural features. French sociologist Pierre Bourdieu viewed education as a perpetrator of the dominant class culture. He called this phenomenon cultural reproduction. Similarly, Brazilian educator Paulo Freire observed that the teaching process, method, and language can make a difference between the oppressors and the oppressed. Another influence is the economic aspect. Equality of opportunity assumes that society is comprised of hierarchy with desirable, superior, and inferior positions. That said, Equality of opportunity is a core value of democracy. However, one may agree that it also has become increasingly difficult to obtain in the present economic conditions. There is an obvious growing gap between rich and poor. According to Apple 2014, certain knowledge in various areas of studies such as professional courses in engineering, medical MCA, MBA, and other applied courses are higher in demand in the Indian context. This proves that the economy of society greatly influences educational and human development in any region. German philosopher and political theorist Karl Marx considered the economy the basic structure for getting power and dominance in society. Furthermore, the educational system also plays a key part in legitimizing control of the dominant section of society. Thus, the controlled economy can produce wealth, but educational power is what makes the sustainable of legitimacy in society. Another influence is the political conditions and its influence. The state nature, its political parties, along with the ideology and policy, steer the nature of education system and its policy in society. Inherent inequality is a key with weakness in democratic states, even if they practice ideas of democratic education development. There is a failure on the part of democratic societies to offer education to all, especially to the most deprived and marginalized section, and this is due to the latter status of the society. On the contrary, socialist states infuse their own political ideology rather than employing secular education, despite asserting for a common education system. An ideal example of this situation is the communist regime of USSR and the Nazi socialist principle of Germany. In 1933, under the Nazi German education system, schools were designed to influence children and get them unquestioningly accept Nazi doctrines. Similarly, the USSR after 1917 used education to carry on with their communist agenda. Educational institutions then have become places of political socialization rather than for the search of the truth.